Hey folks, we are back on the Dev Twitch stream. My name is Nick Taylor. I am a lead software engineer at Forum. Forum is the software that powers dev. And today I'm super excited to be hanging out with Stacie Taylor. We're going to be talking about all things Collab Lab and who knows what else. Thanks so much for coming on, Stacie.
Love is one of my favorite things to talk about. I could talk about it endlessly and eager to see what other things come up in conversation.
Cool. So I guess why don't we start out? I know you're working at Zapier right now. I believe you're a team lead there. Is that right?
Yep, I lead two teams that are kind of in the marketing space. One of them is a more front end team that's the marketing platforms team, where we build the platforms that Zapier's content creators can send great content out into the world with. And then I also manage a team that is more backend and does more of the data syncing from across our different tools. So that's what I do
Okay.
by day.
Nice. And yeah, I guess by night or any other part of the
Yeah.
day, you're working at the Collab Lab. I guess for folks that might not know what the Collab Lab is, can you kind of just give like the TLDR of what it is?
Yes. So the TLDR of the Collab Lab. So we are an organization that is on a mission to diversify tech. And the way that we're doing that is by helping early career engineers get a foothold in their first job in tech. And
Okay.
the way that we are doing that is that we have a program that runs once a quarter. We have 4 to 5 teams, usually from across the world, that get together to collaborate to build a real life app using agile methodologies. So, 4 developers will get together, they'll have 2, 3 mentors, and they split up each week and pair through different pieces of the app build. So, when
Okay.
the 8 week program is done, they have a working app and a lot of really juicy experience to talk about working on a team of developers. And
Okay.
we found that that is really a necessary thing to have because so many of us who have tried to get a start in tech, right, are like, okay,
Hmm.
we went to boot camp, we learned how to code, however, whether you're self taught or did boot camp or university even. But
Yeah.
then when you go to interview for jobs, nobody wants to take a chance on you because you don't have experience working on a team. And
Yeah.
so the Collab Lab really gives you that kind of experience so that you can talk about, when an interviewer is like, tell us about a time you had to give somebody feedback. You're like, yeah, I was working on a team of developers, and here's a very realistic time when that happened. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like getting your first job in a very safe, comfortable space so that you can
Okay.
take those insights into the job search and really impress people.
No, that's awesome. And I guess before we talk a little more about the Collab Lab, how did the Collab Lab become to be? Did I say that right?
Sure, yeah. So, yeah, said it good enough. Andrew Hedges is the founder of Collab Lab. He was, I think the story goes something like this, and y'all should ask Andrew because he'll tell it way more beautifully than I will. But he lives up in Portland and he was
Okay.
at a meetup, like a tech meetup, and found he was chatting with somebody and they were like, yeah, I learned how to code, but I'm really kind of falling off the wagon because I don't have anybody to practice with. I'm just kind of alone in it.
Okay.
And Andrew was like, well, wouldn't it be cool if we had, a team of people who could just work on things together and have some accountability and learn together? And so he grabbed this fellow he was talking to and 3 other people, one of them including me, to kind of try out what would this look like. And
Okay.
Andrew himself kind of had built the app that we build at Collab Lab now. In the past, he broke it down into some user stories, and then we kind of just did a pilot of what it could look like, and it went really well. And when it was over, after the 8 weeks, we were all like, "Oh, that went really well." He was like, "Great, thanks everybody," and I was like, "That's not it, right? Like, we're gonna
This
keep
isn't
doing
over.
this for lots of people, right?" And he was like,
Yeah.
"Oh yeah, let's do that." And so that's when I kind of joined him as co-founder, and we just started
Okay.
rolling. And we just closed applications for our Q2 2022 cohort. And I
Okay.
think we will be on our 44th team at the
Wow.
Collab Lab.
That's
So
awesome.
we're feeling pretty good about how things are going and getting lots of good feedback and just continuing to try and refine it. But yeah, it was just an idea. And some people got together, loved it, and then have kind of started refining it so that a bunch of other people can
Okay.
benefit.
No, that's super cool. So, like you said, there's been about 44 teams now. So
Mhm.
there's these different cohorts. The cohorts are per quarter, right? Like you said?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
So every quarter we do a cohort. Inside the cohort, there are usually 4 to 5 teams. Those teams are generally like a couple North American teams. And then we have European African teams. And we also do Latin American teams that are fully in Spanish too.
Oh,
So
no way.
we've got a pretty wide range. We want to keep growing more, but of course, it's completely volunteer run. And so it's
Yeah.
all usually a matter of like getting volunteers and then getting people who want to participate.
Yeah. No, that was gonna be my next question. Like I know I've volunteered. I can't be a mentor this cohort, but I'm still in the Slack, trying to help where I can. But yeah, I guess for starters, if somebody was interested in becoming a mentor for Collab Lab, what's the process to do that?
Sure. Yeah. So the process right now is to go to the collablab.codes. And Nick's
Okay.
got that. He'll drop it in the chat. But you
Yeah.
go there and there's a page talking about become a mentor where you can reach out and Andrew will likely get back a hold of you and have a chat with you about what we're doing and what mentoring at Collab Lab can look like. However, we're also going through a revamp on our website where we'll talk more about just volunteering at Collab Lab at large,
Okay.
because as you know, it's not just being a mentor. We have so many other things you can do. So if you want to be a mentor, great. We always need them. That
Yeah.
is about a 10-week commitment, about 5 hours a week, where you're directly working with teams and running weekly syncs where there are, retros and kind of sprint planning. We do some learning modules
Okay.
and you're like a member of the team, you're a leader of the team. But we also have opportunities like what you've done in our career lab space, which
Yeah.
is a 2-week extension that we offer people optionally on their Collab Lab experience, where they can do mock interviews and beef up their LinkedIn and resumes and just like have access to a lot of really helpful information on getting started in
Hmm.
their job search. So volunteering for that can be very lightweight. It's usually a week or 2-week commitment every quarter where you're just interviewing collabs and giving them advice based on your experiences in tech. So
Yeah.
that can be a really lightweight commitment that can be very valuable because all of our collabs have been like being able to mock interview and say the words out loud before going into a space where like a job is potentially on the line is so
Yeah.
helpful.
No, for
There's
sure.
also like automation opportunities. Like we're still like being very scrappy with the way we do things. And I would love to get so much more automated. And in my head, I
Okay.
have a million things, but then I also like have a full-time job and am a
Yeah. Yeah.
mom
Exactly.
and other stuff. So I'm like, it's all a dream, but someday it will be a reality.
Yeah. Well, speaking about yourself, we'll get to about like maybe your origin story if you want to talk about it in a
Sure.
bit. But yeah, getting back to the Collab Lab. So it is volunteer. I know, like for example, like there's the Slack. I think there's some seats for Google and stuff, and I know like I've sponsored the Collab Lab on through GitHub sponsors, but is there? I'm curious because it is all volunteer. What are the main resources for? I mean, just to be blunt, like getting cash to enable all this with the volunteer, aside from the GitHub sponsors, or is that the main source?
That is the main source. Like
Okay.
I was saying, we run super scrappy. We do have things that we need to keep the lights on with, right? Like Slack and a couple of the other tools that we use. We have tried to be really resourceful with getting nonprofit accounts for things because we are an official nonprofit. But yeah, just our donors. That's where we get all of our money from to keep the lights on. So
Okay.
please donate if you
Yeah, yeah.
can.
I'll
And you
grab a
can do that
link to
through
the
GitHub
GitHub
or
sponsors.
perfect. Thank you. And on our website too, at the bottom, there's like more information about donating if
Okay, cool.
anybody out there wants to contribute.
Yeah, it's
Thank
a
you.
it's a it's a great program. I strongly encourage you to donate whatever you can. There is a question from the chat. I use ask because for the projects that the cohorts make during the quarter, it's a web-based project. It's using React. She's wondering, how much experience do you need in React, like when you come to the Collab Lab, or do you need any at all?
Excellent. That is a great question. Okay, so here's the thing. At the Collab Lab, we don't teach coding. We teach collaboration and we
Okay.
practice kind of working on a team. So because right now the only program that we're offering is building this React-based app, we expect
Yeah.
you to know how to code and to be able to demonstrate that. Generally, we'll take a look at a GitHub repo that you send us so that we can see, like what your commits are like, what kind of code you're writing. But
Okay.
you'll have a much better chance of getting in if you have some React experience. That being said, if you have a very strong GitHub
Mm-hmm.
profile, for example, that demonstrates a lot of Vue experience or experience in some other similar JavaScript framework, we've brought people on who could be like, hey, we noticed you didn't have a lot of React experience. You might want to take a week to start beefing up on React before you jump in. But they've still been
Yeah.
very successful. So you have a better chance if you know React. You will want
Okay.
to know how to code just so that you and all your teammates are successful. So generally, we'll see a lot of people coming post boot camp or after they've spent a while learning how to code on their own.
Okay.
But it's hard to put a number on like how much React experience you need because
Yeah.
sometimes you don't need any if you have other experience. But yes,
We
chances
we
are
can
best.
give the yeah, we can give the it always depends. But yeah, it sounds like, go ahead and apply anyways, like because it would be a great opportunity if you get in the program.
Yeah,
And
yeah, it's great.
and
And
yeah.
it's like, just know that if you're applying for Collab Lab, we're all here because we want to learn how to work in a team. Like when you get
Yeah.
your foothold in tech and you start working as an engineer, you'll start to realize how very little of your job is actually coding, like fingers to keys
Yeah, yeah.
coding, and how much more of it is collaborating and organizing with a team. And it's like, if you can refine those skills before actually going into interviews or going into a job, you're going to be so
Yeah.
much better set for success because like you might not go into a really safe space to learn these things for the first time. And so if you
Yeah.
can go in with like really confident, solid skills and collaboration, it can take a whole layer of sort of the panic we all feel when we start our first jobs in tech out of the
Hmm.
mix. So highly
Cool.
recommend.
Awesome. I do have some more questions for you, but there is a question from the chat from
Sure.
I don't know who it is, but Dema underscore XIV is asking this thing. Oh, it looks like a really cool project. Have you considered other languages like Python, Node, Ruby, which is probably Rails? So yeah, just wondering if you could speak to that.
Yeah, for sure. We absolutely would love to consider growing the program and offering a lot more. As I mentioned before, we're completely volunteer driven, and sometimes it can be challenging to get people to commit to building whole pieces of the project out like this.
Yeah.
And with the mentors that we have, the mentors are generally, not always, very skilled in React. And so they can be really good, offer really good guidance to teams. So if we
Okay.
do
Yeah.
start expanding, we'll have to expand our mentor pool quite significantly to have
Okay. Yeah.
people
Yeah.
with those backgrounds too. So
Yeah.
yes, we would love to someday is the answer, but today we just do React.
Yeah. No, and I think that makes sense, like you said, given the pool of mentors you have right now. You don't want to spread yourself too thin either. Still want to offer a really great program. So yeah, I can definitely agree with you on all those things. Like, you know, as you get further along in your career, you're still coding, but like a lot of like it's not to sound cheesy, but communication is like super important. Like obviously you still need to have some kind of programming chops as you go through your career, but yeah, it's so important, and especially like the pandemic is kind of exacerbated this, but like a lot more companies have moved to remote. You
Mhm.
work remote, I work remote, and I work with people all over the planet. I have coworkers in Russia, Poland, like Thailand, South Africa. I'm in Montreal in
Yeah.
Canada. So, we have meetings when it makes sense. We don't have a lot of
Mhm.
them. Most of the stuff we do, it's written. So,
Mhm.
even though we're an open source project, even if you were a closed source project, you know, writing really good issues, communicating what the issue is, what's the roadblocks you're having, because you know, when I'm finishing my day and if I just left a message like, hey, it's not working, they're gonna wake up in the morning and they're just gonna see a message that say, hey, it's not working, and then they'd probably respond with like, well, what's the problem? And then you end up with this
Mhm.
ping pong. So learning to communicate effectively is super important because when you can give as much context to things, it ends up being a better experience. And also just like for context, for like historical context, like maybe you're going to revisit something, and like if you were
Right.
more synchronous, where you just had a one-off meeting and nothing was written
Mhm.
down, like that, all that context is lost. So uh,
Exactly.
it's super super important. So I definitely
Yeah.
couldn't agree more with you about that.
I love that idea of like using Slack, for example, communication as almost documentation. So at work at Zapier, what a lot of us will do is we'll almost create a thread just for ourselves. It's almost rubber ducking. Like if
Yeah.
you, and rubber ducking meaning, to anybody who's not familiar with that term, it's kind of the idea of just talking it
Yeah.
out. That's a cute little rubber, what is that, a corgi duck?
Yeah, I got that from shout out to Jason Langsdorf. He sells it
Oh,
on his store.
love that. But anyway, the idea of rubber ducking, right, is just talking it out, like out loud to somebody. And when you do that in a very public way, in a very transparent way in Slack, 3 months from now, when another engineer is hitting the same error that you got, they can be like,
Mhm.
oh, here's the answer right here, because all of those search terms were in this beautiful
Yeah.
thread. So I highly encourage you to just figure out a way to really communicate well and document your thoughts in a very digestible way, because
Yeah.
not only is it going to help future you, but it's going to help everybody else on your team too. And it's a really
Yeah.
strong skill to demonstrate when you do go to find a new job, that's something
Yeah.
you find really important.
For sure. And like you said, like there's stuff I've done, and I come back like even like 2 months later. Sometimes I'm like, what the heck
Right.
is all this stuff? And like, oh, okay, now I remember. Okay, because you're reading through some things. And
Yep.
um, eh,
Exactly.
yeah, and you know, it's also super important as you. Oh, IU says she's got to run for upper time. Thanks for popping by.
Bye.
Yeah, it's also like if you can explain things well, like that it's a great skill to have, so like I myself, even other seniors I know, sometimes it's like you're onboarding somebody, or maybe you're pairing with somebody, and then you realize you have holes in your knowledge too, so just talking it through and then writing it down,
Yeah.
it's just super helpful. And that's why like there's I'm kind of mixing a bunch of things here, but like, there's career changers I know have come to Collab Lab and other places. And I know like my friend Becca, she used to be an English teacher, and she's so great at communicating because of that.
Yeah.
So like, and I was talking to two of our collabbies last week for the job mock fit interview, and I was just saying, lean in on your previous experience, even if it's not
Yes.
programming, because there's so many skills that can translate from there that would apply to
Exactly.
programming. Because I find at the end of the day, yes, you're doing coding, but I feel like we're just all detectives. We're trying to crack the case.
Yeah.
Like whether it's a feature or a
Exactly.
bug.
Exactly. And we're all just trying to make life better for people at large. And those people that you might be making life better for might not be, computer science engineering grads.
Yeah,
They're like regular people like you've worked with in your other jobs. So it's like when you come to the table with a history in service, for example, I feel like you understand humans on a very different level than somebody else might who didn't work in that. And like when
yeah,
we all work together and we kind of like put our experiences with humanity together, I feel like that's when we can really start building tools for people that they want to
yeah,
use because we know them, we know the people. And so lean
yeah,
on that for sure.
yeah. Like, and just also having empathy for folks. I mean, I used to work in restaurants, and I also did internet technical support before I
Mm.
got a programming job. And I can 100% tell you that nobody calls their ISP to say, hey, my internet's great. Just wanted to let you know that. Have a great day.
Good job.
People usually call up. They're angry or upset because their internet's not working. You let them vent a bit, and then you just like, okay, well, let's take a look at this. And then, not always, sometimes there's just people who are just full on angry all the time. But once you calm somebody down a bit, you help them out, then they're like, thanks, and stuff. And it's like
Hmm.
leaning into those skills. There's I'll try and find the the stream we did, but I had a few career changers on, and like one of them was an opera singer, one was like in an orchestra,
Oh,
and
I love
you
that.
know they're thinking like, well, you know, I'm an opera singer. How would that even help me out? And I'm like, well, if you think about it, you know, like music or singing, requires a lot of training, discipline,
Hmm.
and those are things that directly translate to problem
Yeah.
solving, you know, and like so just want to
It's
give a
like,
shout out to all the career changers. So
yes. And I love that you mentioned like the empathy that you develop in these other roles, like in service or support or whatever it might be. Because it's like,
yeah,
as an engineer, a lot of times you're handed plans of sorts from a designer or a product manager, and you have to make those
yeah,
things go. And I want to encourage all of the engineers, the early career engineers listening, to use your experience to make things better. Just
yeah,
because somebody gave you these plans doesn't mean they're the best. Like,
hmm,
put yourself as you're coding features into a user's shoes and think, is this something that they actually are going to find useful? And if not, like,
yeah,
hopefully you're in a safe enough environment to do this, but challenge
yeah,
those ideas and propose better ideas because you know stuff that other people don't know. And so that's our
exactly.
job, is to like make good things. And you can't make good
Yeah.
things without questioning things.
Yeah, and I can't stress that enough for people starting off their career too. Like I'm being slightly hypocritical because when I started off as a junior dev, I was afraid to ask questions. I was kind of terrified that like people thought I was terrible and stuff, you know. And but you know, your point of view could make the difference, or like bring up something like, oh yeah, that's a great idea, or oh, I hadn't thought about that. And
Yeah.
I don't have all these tweets lined up because they're just things that are popping in my head now. But there's is a tweet from like an older game programmer from like when there was like the older consoles. Like I think it was Atari or Nintendo, and they
Mm.
were talking about. I'm not really into football, but there's this game called Tecmo Bowl, which was a like kind of pixelated football game, and there was this issue like they were looking at the screen and they're like, where's all the players? There was only the ball on the screen. And this junior developer, you know, was like, well, did you look inside the ball? And then like all the senior developers, and I'm paraphrasing here, but the senior developers
Yeah.
are like, yeah, whatever. And then they debugged the code, they looked in the ball, and sure enough the players were in there. They had been zoomed sorry, they got shrunk for whatever reason. There must have been a variable or something or some
Yeah.
scenario that caused them to get so tiny.
I.
And that was a junior developer, and then like they were like, yo, yeah, you know. So it's like
Hmm.
definitely don't
It
be afraid to
happens
speak up.
so often. Exactly that. Like, we're all seeing things different. And it could just be like a quick little bug in a line of code that to a more senior level person, they're like overlooking. But because it's very fresh for you, you can be in there
Yeah,
asking questions like, well, why is this way? And that causes somebody with more experience to look and be like, oh, you know what? It shouldn't be. And I hope
yeah,
that all of you get to go into a team full of very empathetic, honest people who don't have a lot of ego so that they can say things like, oh, you know what? That was my mistake. I hope that they do that as a good model for you all, but you might not be in that space.
yeah,
And I'm so sorry if that's you, but do feel encouraged to ask the questions because you have to.
yeah. No, for sure. And no programs like this, and just I find, you know, not every company, but like I know when I started off, I didn't really have mentors, or none that I can really
Mhm.
remember. Stack Overflow literally did not exist at this point. Like I think Stack Overflow only showed up in 2009, and so like nowadays, like I just think it's so great that there's so many folks willing to mentor, sponsor people,
Mhm.
company. You know, again, not every companies. There's obviously still not so great companies too, but like you said, if you can find a place where there's like seniors willing to mentor, you know, pair, just help out, you know, it's amazing. And those places are out there for sure. And I have
Yeah.
no doubt, although I've never worked there, I'm sure since you and Andrew are there, Zapier is one of those places for sure.
It's
Yeah.
like, it's all very different. I feel like no matter where you go, but I think that even as an early career engineer, at most places, unless you're working for a really big company that's very bureaucratic and has very strict rules,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of freedom to make the experience be what you need it to be. So if you're an early career engineer, I would encourage that whatever team you join, find somebody on the engineering team that you can pair up with every day, whether it's just like
Yeah.
a 30-minute check-in to tell them where you're getting blocked or what you're working on, or if you know, pair with them through a whole feature build, having
Hmm.
that person to lean on and to dedicate some time to you makes you feel
Yeah.
like less of a bother. So as you're going throughout your day, you're like, oh, I have all these questions, but I don't want to bother anybody. If you know that tomorrow you have 30 minutes with engineer A, then you're not going to
Yeah.
feel like a bother and you have space. And if you can build trusting relationships, it becomes a lot more comfortable to ask questions and just make progress. And so
Yeah.
try not to hide yourself away. Try and in the beginning be like, this is what I need from my team is 30 minutes of synchronous time a day. And having that time, I think, can make a huge difference.
Yeah. No, for sure. And there's someone in the chat, so vicious, is saying, all this is so helpful. I'm in a boot camp now and I'm a career changer. Used to be, or might currently still be, a journalist writer with tech support experience. And I'm wondering if I'm good enough to be there. I know what I would say. I would just say apply. So
Yes,
I'm
you are
gonna
absolutely
drop
good
that
enough
link
to be
again. Yeah, so definitely check
beautiful.
that out, Ali, or Ali Also Vicious. I'm not sure what your real name is.
Alio so vicious.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no,
So
we have so many career changers come through the program. In fact, I would say I would bargain to say 90%. Like
okay,
that's who comes to do these things. People who have been doing other things and are ready to break into the tech industry and don't have the
okay,
privilege of, rolling out of high school and going to university and getting a degree. It's
yeah,
people like me who, is a mom of two who has a communications degree that I used to do absolutely nothing relevant. And you need the experience because it's really hard going out there and to interview with companies. They're like, why would we
yeah,
hire you? You have literally nothing to show. And CollabLab does
yeah.
a great job of giving you something to show. And you get surrounded by people who just want to help you, mentors that
Hmm.
become lifelong mentors who can expose you to opportunities and who can just be there for you if you have questions, even once you leave the CollabLab and you get your next engineering role and you have a question that you
Yeah.
don't feel comfortable asking at work. You have a whole team, a whole community of people at the CollabLab that you can lean on for the rest of
Hmm.
forever.
Yeah, and I like what you said there because like there's a lot of, I mean, there's been tons and tons of. I feel like there's been a big influx of juniors since the pandemic, but like
Mhm.
everybody is trying to make connections, to land that job and stuff. And I totally get that. But to your point, what you were saying is like, don't focus on that short term, like, hey, just connect with me on LinkedIn and hey, can you help me
Mhm.
find a job? Like you want to make those meaningful connections. And I don't mean it's not going to happen like overnight. But those are the ones that are long lasting. I have like my first manager from like because I'm like getting up there. Like my first I think, or my second manager from like 2004. I mean, I know him because I used to play rugby with him, but like I still talk to him about work all the time. Sometimes I've ended up doing some work for him on the side, and just other people. And the thing with these connections too is it's great if it helps you out, but it doesn't have to,
Mhm.
like I've met you through the Collab Lab now, and maybe I never work at Zapier, but I know you and I know you work there, so I'd be like, hey, there's this friend of mine,
Yeah,
they're super interested in Zapier, would you mind having like a 15-minute chat with them? They're just curious about this role or
exactly.
something, so
Exactly
it's
that. So much of the game is who you know and what connections you can find. And it can be really
yeah.
hard for people who are nervous and introverted and don't feel a lot of imposter syndrome like they don't belong. But I promise you, there are
Yeah.
people out there that want to help you. So, yeah, like Nick was saying, make those meaningful connections and use that time really wisely. Come with questions
Yeah.
or projects or things that you want to gain from it so that you can be really efficient and you can just use the time to grow together with somebody because as much as
Hmm.
an early career engineer is growing through mentorship, mentors are growing too.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like a total two-way street. So it's beautiful to have those relationships.
Yeah, no, I definitely can say I've learned some things from people I've mentored too. So yeah, no, big ups
Mhm.
to that. Um, I want to kind of switch gears for a sec because you were talking about your
Sure.
communications degree and how you said like, oh well, nothing really came of that. So I'm kind of curious how you, I guess, kind of how you ended up in tech and like
Yeah,
where you're at now, like kind of what that, not to sound cheesy, but I'll say journey.
I'll tell you about my journey. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
so got out of high school, knew I had to go to college because that's what I was supposed to do. Like I grew up in the deep
yeah.
Midwest and was kind of like went along with what everybody else did. I thought I was gonna be a nurse for a while because that's what most women who grew up in my community did. I lived in a small farm
Okay.
town with like less than 3,000 people. So I was like, okay, I'm obviously gonna go be a nurse. Started
Hmm.
into that, got like a CNA, started taking care of people as a nurse's assistant, and
Okay.
realized like I love people a lot, but maybe not that much. Any CNA out there has a heart of gold because they're doing the
Yeah.
hardest work. I think it's the hardest work. Anyway, then I was like, I don't know. I like to look at magazines. I guess I'll get a communications degree. I don't know what
Okay.
I was thinking. Got out of college, worked at a bank, and then came to California and got a job in social media where I was
Okay.
just like doing people's social media. And then that was at a little startup that was connected to a lot of other startups. And we were just kind of all growing together in different directions. At
Okay.
that social media startup, we started building our own kind of like customer client management system because we had very
Okay.
unique ways we worked. And in that, I was kind of like, oh, I'm loving driving this project of like our processes. I had built a lot of Zaps and stuff
Yeah.
like that, like just automating things,
Okay.
and was trying to figure out how we could build this internal app. And the CEO was like, well, you're doing product management right now. Like, you should really lean into
Hmm.
product management and learn that. And so it just
Okay.
started really like kind of was fell into the opportunity to be a product manager because I liked it and I was
Okay. Okay.
kind of good at the stuff that it required. Got a
Yeah.
lot of experience doing that for a couple different things, a couple different projects and apps. And then I was like, okay, I want to be a product manager places, started applying. The gates are almost just as high for product managers as they are for engineers. So it was
Yeah.
very hard to get into that. And so at the startup I was working at that time, I was like, I want to go learn how to code because I was having some friction with the engineers I was working with when I was the product manager, where I'd be like, okay, our users really want this list sorted A to Z. Just
Okay.
alphabetically sort this list. And they were like, well, it's just not so easy like that. And would like drag their feet. And I was like, just sort the list. Like, why is this
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
hard? Granted, now that I'm an engineer, I know that it's not always just so easy like that. But I think that there was a lot of tension in this particular situation. So told the CEO, I'm going to go learn how to code because I want to be able to just do this stuff on my own. And originally he was like, no, I need you to be the product manager, kind of stay in your lane.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, because I'm a woman in tech and that's what we do. And looking back, I'm so embarrassed about it. But I was like, all right, I won't. But then secretly, I was like,
Oh,
forget
secret.
about him. I'm going to boot camp. And so I put myself through boot camp. At this time, I like had a 1 year old and was about to give birth to another baby. I was like, I'm going to do boot camp. I'm going to do my full time startup product manager job. And then when I finished boot camp, I told that CEO, I was like, you told me not to go. And that was
Yeah.
not okay with me. So I went anyway. And he felt so bad that he was like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. That's not what I meant. I'll like pay for it. So he like footed the bill for boot camp,
Oh, nice.
knowing
Nice.
that I was probably going to leave to be an engineer somewhere. But started freelancing with the new stuff I learned at boot camp for some of the bigger art or some of the bigger museums in Chicago. So the Modern Art Museum of Chicago, the Shed Aquarium, they have an accessibility app that makes acting with exhibits easier for people who have different disabilities. And so I was working on that as a
Okay.
freelancer. It was a rough experience being a freelancer as an early career engineer. People out there do it and are successful. So if you're listening to me say this, know that there
Yeah.
are ways to be successful. I was not. I was like, be like, hey, can you make these images in a certain kind of grid? And I'd be like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
that'll only take me 5 hours. And then it's like hour 15 and I'm still working on
Yeah.
it. And
Yeah. Yeah.
and I don't have anybody to ask because I didn't have any mentors either. And so I was just
Okay.
like, billing them for 5 hours. And like this, it was just not scalable
Yeah,
as a
yeah.
mom who needed good, benefits for children and stuff. So I was like, okay, I need to find a job as an engineer. And this is where like why I'm really passionate about the Collab Lab. Wanted to find a job as an engineer, had been freelancing, so had some
Yeah.
experience, but nobody would hire me. Like everybody was
Okay.
like, well, what do you have to offer us? You've never been a developer on a team. And I probably had like 50 rounds of interviews that just ended in me being very disappointed and feeling kind of
Okay.
worthless. And so I was like, okay, I don't have time to keep going this interview route. The path of least
Hmm.
resistance for me is going to be finding a support role at a very technical company and then moving over to
Okay.
engineering from there because I can't fuck around with these interviews anymore, basically. And so, can I say that on the stream? Anyway, sorry.
That's too late. You
So
already said it. So.
I went to I went to a couple of companies and got in the interviewing pipeline for support roles. Zapier was
Okay.
one of them. And in the end, I was like offered two roles, and they're both really fantastic. But I had I had known people at Zapier, and by known I mean I met Andrew Hedges through Twitter because I think I was
Okay.
tweeting about looking for a job, and he tweeted like, "Hey, have you looked at Zapier?" And I was like, "Oh, that's interesting. I don't know if I'm qualified." And he was like, "Let's
Yeah.
just get on Zoom." And we connected on Zoom, and he kind of like gave me a good referral. And I was like, "Okay,
That's
well, I
awesome.
know that there's at least one very kind person at Zapier, so
Yeah.
I think I'll take my chances on Zapier." Got there right up front, told everybody I could tell, I want to go into engineering. I want to move to the
Yeah.
engineering team someday. And that's a really risky thing to do. And I think you have to do it very confidently because in tech in general, as soon as you say, I'm going to come onto the engineering team, gates go up. And it's
Yeah.
like, I was overwhelmed at Zapier by all the support I got to make that move. Like
Okay.
nobody was like, trying to like put up gates or make me feel unwelcome. Lots of the engineers were like, how can I help you? Like, do you want to shadow me? Do you want to help like pair up with me to work on things? Like, how
Yeah.
can I move you over here? I want you to succeed because it'll make us all feel great. And so that's what I did. And honestly, that path is what I recommend to a lot of moms, specifically in tech, especially who are career changers who have
Okay.
experience in the service industry or in support because we don't have the resources or the time, especially single mothers, to
Hmm.
spend a year interviewing. We have to have a job right now and it has to pay well and it needs to be flexible and all these other things. So I found that you can spend your tires trying to get the job endlessly, or you can find a
Yeah.
company that you like and a company that you know is supportive and find like find the path of least resistance there, find an entry
Yeah.
point there, and put it in your growth plan that you want to move over to engineering and try and find
Hmm.
ways in your day job to do that. I also think this is great because coming from support onto an engineering team is like a superpower because you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
so many things about the company that none of the engineers you work with know because they've never had to. And you can
Yeah.
say things like, I don't think our users would find that helpful. I know because I talk to
Because, yeah.
50 of them a day for over a year.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like you can like get a level of respect that you might not get just coming fresh
Yeah.
into an engineering org too. So I thought it was great. It takes a little bit longer, but sometimes the best
Yeah.
things do.
Yeah. It's definitely not a cookie cutter recipe, but that path worked for you. And I know there's others that have done that path of like, you know what, I'm gonna do support and then move over, like that's the end game, you know. But again, I kind of want to touch on what you said you ended up speaking to Andrew, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
you buy it's a superpower when you can bypass like a whole part of an interview process like the resume line.
Mm,
Doesn't mean you're
yeah.
guaranteed you're going to get the job, but like just reaching out to somebody, like, hey, this looks really
Yeah.
cool. You mind if we chat, and
Yeah.
obviously I would assume you know Andrew pretty well now, and he's probably a
Yeah.
lifelong connection and friend now,
Yeah.
so like, there's that too, so it's
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I think you're totally right that it's like, and I just know from working at Zapier that the amount of
Hmm.
applications we get is uncanny. Like there are
Yeah.
so many. There's no way you're gonna like our recruiters read through them all, but it's when you're getting so many that it's like just chaos. And so if you can
Yeah.
find connections at a company that you like and sort of get somebody to give you a thumbs up, it's a really easy way to stand out in the crowd because the crowd is big these days.
It sounds bad to say, but knowing people definitely helps out. It doesn't, it's not always the case, but it definitely helps if you do know people, even if it's just to
Yeah.
have a conversation with somebody. Like I can give an example. I didn't get a job there at Netflix, but I reached out to somebody on Twitter. I was asking him about something, and they're like, "Oh, I don't know, but I'll give you the email of a manager. Just I'll tell him you're going to email him." And I had an hour-long conversation with an engineering manager there. Like I said, things didn't work out, which is fine, but I had that 1 hour conversation that I never would have had if I had just sent in a resume right away, you know?
I
So,
love that. Yes. Actually, I have a very similar story at Netflix too, where
okay.
I was referred in by a fellow mentor at Collab Lab, who's an engineering manager there. And she was like, she knew I wanted to be an engineering manager. I'm still not an engineering manager. It's my end of the year
Yeah.
goal. But so I had no experience as an engineering manager. And she's like, I want to refer you in for this EM position at Netflix. And I was like, I am
Okay.
wildly underqualified for this. You know that, right? She was like, yeah, just do
Yeah.
it anyway. So I met with this other hiring manager who sent me through the process. I did those whole big,
Okay.
long 6 hour interviews. And
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the end, also didn't get it because, hello, no experience. But also, the hiring manager was like, I think you're going to do great things and I want to be there to witness it. So I would love to coach you if that's something you're interested in. And so now
Oh,
I
that's
have this
awesome.
coach that I meet with who's an engineering manager at Netflix who just is there to
Cool.
coach me once a month and keep up to date on my progress and stuff. So it's like, good things can come of things that don't work out too. So
Yeah, yeah.
don't always feel defeated. But
Yeah,
yeah, and it's
and
like also making those connections is so important. It was kind of like we are
yeah.
saying how it's really valuable for mentors too, because like I've got experiences like, for example, there's this engineer named Eric who, when I was going through boot camp, I was like tweeting about a lot of the work that I was doing and struggles I was facing. And when I'd come across a technical problem, Eric would be like, on Twitter responding and trying to help walk me through some of these things. And we just developed a
Yeah.
really strong Twitter connection. And then I went to Zapier and Eric was like, oh, I am looking for a new job. I'm interested in Zapier. I was like, please come to Zapier. Got him on
Yeah.
the engineering team at Zapier. And then he started sponsoring me from the inside to get over to the
No way.
engineering team. We've just kind of been going like this
That's
for like
awesome.
years now. And so it's like making those connections has, it's just been beautiful. Highly
Yeah.
encouraged.
Yeah, that's Eric. Is it Bayou? I'm trying to remember his name. We follow each other on Twitter.
A-Bar, Eric A-Bar.
Abar.
I think probably his handle is something
Abar.
exactly like that.
Yeah. If you find it, drop his Twitter in the chat there if you can. But yeah, I'm still perplexed what happened to my internet because it's been like super solid. The only thing I can think about is I'm having some renovations done. I don't know, maybe something. Well, they definitely didn't cut the wire because then I wouldn't be back at all. But anyways, it's all good. It's all good.
No worries. It's all
Um,
part of the remote experience.
yeah, yeah. It's also one of the reasons why I don't really do YouTube videos. I mean, I put recordings up of streams I do, but one of the things I like about Twitch is like people expect it not to be perfect.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I've heard
kind of,
that. Because I was really nervous about Twitch. I was like, I've never been on, what is Twitch? I've heard the kids talk about it,
yeah,
obviously. And then people were like, no, no, no worries if something goes wrong. People expect that. I'm like, oh, okay. Not so nervous then. Yeah,
yeah,
team was like, yeah.
yeah, exactly. So, getting back to the collab lab, because I know we're going all over the place here. We always go on tangents here, but so in regards to the cohort, so you talked about there's I'll drop the sample project and a link to the GitHub repo if
Yes,
people want to check that out.
yes.
How long is the program? Like, so say I were to join up this cohort, how many months are we
Mhm.
talking about? What's the commitment to it, to check-ins, all that kind
Sure.
of stuff?
Okay, so this is what it looks like. It is the Collab Lab's core program is 8 weeks long. So over
Okay.
that 8 weeks, there are 4 developers on your team. Each week is a new sprint. So in that week, the 4 developers split up into 2 pairs of 2,
Okay.
and they each tackle a story together. So
Okay.
You start the week, you pair program with your partner to build the thing you need to build. And then you leave the rest of the week to send it over to the other pair for code review, make any revisions you need to make. Then it finally goes to your mentors for kind of a final approval of the code.
Okay.
And it all gets merged into production. Then what happens is on the weekends, either Saturday or Sunday, your team will have a weekly sync. The weekly
Okay.
sync will look one of two ways. There are two different versions, like even
Okay.
an odd numbered weeks. But one of the weeks, every week you get together and you demo the work you did the week before, which is a crucial skill, not only for the
Yeah.
interview process, but for being a developer, because you have to demo your work a lot. So
Yeah.
you get to learn how to demo really well, get a lot of good experience with that. And then on even weeks, you will do a learning module. So your mentors will put together something that they think is really valuable, usually around collaboration and that side of being an engineer. And
Yeah.
then you'll do kind of a sprint planning, you would call it, if you do Scrum,
Yeah.
or like it's just an agile thing, where you get together and you say, okay, what issues are we working on next week? You pick the two, you assign them, you talk through them to see if there's any, if we need to add any color to the tickets, if anything's missing. And then it all starts over again. You pair with your partner, you go through the
Mm-hmm.
motions of code reviews, and then the next week you have another weekly sync. In this one, instead of doing a learning module where you're learning something new, you do a
Okay.
retrospective. And these are also part of Agile. If anybody listening isn't familiar with that, oh, thanks for dropping that link. Retrospectives are a really, really fantastic time for growth as a team. You get to give appreciations to your teammates for the amazing things they've been doing. You get to talk about what went really well. So in our
Mm-hmm.
project, in our collaboration, what things were great? What do we want to keep
Yeah.
doing more of? And then you also get to talk about what didn't go so well. And
Mm-hmm.
CollabLab is a really great chance to say those things out loud and express that feedback in a very safe space where everybody's growing together. Because giving feedback
Yeah.
can be one of the hardest pieces of being on a team. And if
Yeah.
you've never had to do it before and you jump into a space that, might not be as supportive as you need, it can be very scary. So
Yeah.
retros are one of my favorite things that we do at CollabLab because, again, just getting to say those things out loud before it really matters, before it's for money, can be very helpful. So anyway, we do that for 8 weeks. Each week is a sprint. At the end, we celebrate and we say, if you want to stick around for 2 more weeks to get ready for your job hunt, please do. We highly encourage
Yeah.
it. And we call that optional 2-week thing Career Lab, where
Okay.
we, learn how to tell our story, do the mock interviews, which you've been involved with and are so helpful. And just kind of prepare. And you get to be surrounded by like a whole new set of mentors, usually for that piece that you didn't
Mm-hmm.
meet in your core team. So it's even more
Yeah.
connections for people who work for Zapier and obviously the practical dev at this time and
Yeah.
OnePass and like these big companies, Buffer, like some big name
Yeah.
companies who have mentors there. So it's like getting in, you get to know a lot of really great people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No,
Katrina.
there's like, yeah, just that alone, like again, just getting back to the connections and people, like I've I definitely love the Collab Lab, like just the community aspect of it. Another thing to, in general, if you're starting out, or even if you aren't starting out, just joining a community period is a great thing you can do. Like
Yep.
I met my friend Becca, who's a good friend of mine now, through Virtual Coffee. It's a program she started,
She's
and
amazing.
it literally started with she tweeted out, "Hey, anybody want to meet a coffee for a
Mm.
coffee?" And I just said, "Hey, yeah." I DM'd her, "Hey, if there's still room, I'll pop by." And that's like almost 2.5 years later now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and yeah, I think people would, maybe it's not surprising, but
Becca's
you'd be,
here.
oh, hey, Becca, hey, yeah, yeah, heart right back at you. You'd be surprised at how many people are willing to help people. And
Yep.
even just putting stuff out on Twitter, like I can think of concrete examples, and like I wasn't even adding the person. So we use Preact, which is like React at Forum and Dev 2, and I wrote out like, oh, I'm stuck on this thing. I had an issue open, and all of a sudden we follow each other now, but the creator of the project, Jason Miller, who works at Google, he responded to me in my own issue, and he offered suggestions and stuff. And that was like not even me asking for help. It was more like, hey, I'm stuck on this. Curious. Well, I guess I was kind of asking it, but it was more like, hey, internet, not like somebody
Right.
specific.
Everyone.
So, so it's just, it's, you'd be super surprised at how many people
Oh,
want to help. And I think the only thing I would
people
say
are
to that,
listening.
yeah, the only thing I would say to that too, though, is like, I love helping people. Whenever you do receive help at some point, whenever you can, and hopefully you'd like to, just, just give it back, like help others out, you know? Oh, hey, Shelly. Hey. Yeah, Shelly's in Collab Lab too,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Shirley
She's
is
in
in
my
Collab Lab,
virtual
and I
coffee too.
love this. I love this because I found, okay, so my tech journey really started with the Moms Can Code crew, which a
Okay.
lot of people who are in all these spaces are also in. And
Yeah.
it was like it was very supportive to know there were other moms out there trying to do this too, who are struggling, with having so many babies and so much to do and needing to
Yeah.
have full-time jobs and learn to code and then get another job. And it was a lot of stress, and having those people around just to have a shared experience was so
Mm-hmm.
powerful for me. And then from there, I've seen a lot of people break out and kind of form their own things. And we all have a lot
Okay.
going on now. Like Becca's got virtual coffee and we've got the Collab Lab. And so there's this kind of like really beautiful blend. Like we work together so well in this
Mm-hmm.
space of just trying to make tech better for like underrepresented people specifically, and then
Yeah.
bringing people in like allies to just rally with us. And it's been so powerful to have so many communities out there doing great things. And it kind of gives
Yeah.
me hope. It gives me hope to see that there are so many people out there who want to make a difference and who want to see change. So high
Yeah.
five to everybody
And,
doing awesome things.
and we haven't even talked about that, but yeah, there's a big focus on diversity in the collab labs too. And, like, because like I'm probably, I wouldn't say I'm stereotypical, but like I am a white guy in tech, like my name's not Chad, but like there's a lot of free passes I get, just for
Mhm.
being or looking the way I do, and I'm aware of that, but I still have to kind of reflect sometimes before I say things, like what, like why don't you do this? And then it's like, well, I can probably do that just because I have a lot of privilege just because I'm a white guy in
Yeah,
tech, So it some things it's never anything bad I said. It's just more like I
right.
have to kind of reassess, like it might not work for everybody, or like
Mhm.
if you
Yeah,
can, if you have time, if it fits in with your things, like I'm a big proponent of open source. It's opened a lot of doors for me, but
mhm.
like I know, not every, like I had the privilege, I could spend a weekend on something sometimes,
Right.
and I know not everybody can do that, but
Yeah,
if you can, it definitely opens doors.
yeah,
But anyways, that
yeah.
was my long segue to talking about diversity in the collab lab, because I know it's a big focus as well.
Yeah. So we do focus a lot on diversity, and we recognize that everybody has biases. We have biases.
Yeah.
And so we're explicit about those. And so the way our teams work is we have four developers, and only one of
Mm-hmm.
those will be a male identifying person. The other ones will be, female identifying or non-binary. And we do
Yeah.
that so that, like, because there was a point in my head where I was like, no, like all women and non-binary people. And Andrew was
Okay.
like, yeah, but there are going to be men in tech, and we need to raise them in a space where they understand how to communicate and they know early on that how valuable,
Mm-hmm.
these underrepresented groups can be. And so I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Like, it's not like being exclusionary is not the key, but rather helping people see value in people that they don't understand. And so if you can imagine your
Yeah.
first experience being on a team of all women and non-binary people, you're going to go into the tech world with a very different view of who
Yeah.
those people are, and it's going to matter a heck of a lot more to you than it did if you'd never worked with any. And so
Yeah,
I
for
think it's
sure.
a really solid approach, and just a lot of work goes into all of us being mindful, like you're saying, of creating a very safe space for people
Yeah.
and just being mindful of their own experiences. Like you were saying, if this is something I do that works for me, but when you're then mindful and like can put the caveat if like this might not work for you, like you need to do what makes you feel safe and comfortable, that can be very meaningful for people.
Yeah, for sure. And like you said, there not every place is amazing. I have worked at
Hmm.
some toxic places, or like a place that did end up getting toxic, or you know, I'd say I have a bit of a thick skin, but still it's not great when somebody just tells you, just, hey, fucking fix that. That sucks or something. It's not, even though
Yeah.
I'm like, I can bounce that off me, that's still not a good way to respond to somebody,
No,
you know?
no,
And and I think this is
exactly.
one of the great things you were saying about, I mean, it's the collab lab because you're collaborating, and we were talking about communication before, but it's also
Mhm.
super important, like when you're reviewing people's code. There's a It's called conventional commits. It's sorry, conventional comments. It's something I started using a year and a half ago. I'll drop a link to it, but it's just reframing how you give feedback. So like, instead of saying, you know I don't know, change this doesn't work, or like you use this method instead, you can reframe it by prefixing it with stuff. So you can say like refactor, nitpick, use this instead. But if it's something
Mhm.
I consider like it can't ship, I'll say like refactor blocking, and then I'll write something. And it's a
Mhm.
small thing, but I've had several people on the team. It was one of my old coworkers, Michael Cole, who had introduced me to it, but I've had other coworkers since then like adopted, and also just they found it helpful. But
Yeah.
my point about all that is really, it's the giving feedback like you were saying before. And especially if you're an open source, so say you're looking for work, all of this stuff is literally in the open. So like, if even if
Right.
you're writing amazing code, and then you're just like, people look at how you interact with people, like that
Mhm.
already, like if people happen to see that stuff, they'll be like, oof, yeah,
It's a
yeah,
leg
okay,
up.
you know what I mean? So basically, it's pretty hard to go wrong by just being kind, honestly. So it's
Exactly.
like,
And it's like on the open source note too, I think that this is a very powerful way to kind of get your foot in the tech in a way that doesn't have to be intimidating. Like I know a lot of people will be like, I can't contribute to
yeah,
open source. I just learned React, but never like doubt the power of documentation. So if you go in and something isn't properly documented, add that because it shows that you're being mindful of other people's experience with this piece of technology. And that's really
yeah,
powerful. Go in and do code reviews, like Nick mentioned, and make sure they are positive because I don't remember what the number is, but there's some kind of saying like if you want to build trust with people and you want to be able to give them constructive feedback, you need to give them 10
yeah,
pieces of positive feedback for every one construction. And so it's like go in there and just tell people like, oh, this is a really brilliant use of this method or whatever it might be, or oh,
yeah,
clever that you did this, or just like go in there and just like interact and show that you're a good team player because that's something that you can't demonstrate very well working on your own. So if you're
yeah,
applying for a job and you're like, here's my GitHub repo and it's a bunch of pet projects that you put together by yourself, what I
yeah,
see as somebody who's hiring is, okay, you know how to code. That's one piece of the puzzle, but I want to know how you work in a team. And you can
yeah,
demonstrate that through these things like going into open source and being part of that team. So try and find teamwork where you can because lots of people are learning how to code right now and it's what's going to keep
yeah,
you like one step ahead.
yeah. And you know, like we were saying before, there are a lot of new developers out there looking for that first job. So,
Mhm.
I'm not going to candy coat it. It's from everything I've read and like hearing from people, it's super competitive, and it can be demoralizing sometimes. But, you know, I always say do whatever you can do to stand out. I mean, obviously don't break any laws, people, but, uh, like lean in on even things that you've done in the past, like for example, it can be even silly stuff. Like, and I was talking to, I think it was Rafa or Amber, I was talking to when we were doing the job fit mock fit
Mhm.
interviews, and I was just giving examples like I used to play rugby, and I also used to be in a handbell choir. When I was That's how I got out of church. I would just be in a handbell choir, and we were in our own space where we didn't have to really do church stuff. But my point is, like, sometimes I would bring these things up in interviews, and people will remember, oh, that's the handbell guy, or you know what I mean, like
Mhm.
even if you don't get the job, or even if the interview didn't go that great, they'll probably remember, oh, that's handbell guy, or that's Stacie. She's I don't know, she juggles spoons. That's spoon
Yeah,
juggler. You know what I mean? Like I'm being a little ridiculous here now, but anything to make people remember you, can definitely help too. And obviously interesting
exactly.
work you've done too will definitely help you stand out. Um, Speaking to Amber, just giving our own collab user shout out.
Hmm.
Amber, where she's currently working, she works with mainframes in a insurance company, and like I don't know anybody that works with mainframes. So like as soon as we started that job mock fit interview, all I had on my brain was this is mainframe person. You know what I mean? So like
Yeah,
if in a pool of like 600 resumes, I would remember mainframe person. You know what I mean?
right.
Because it stands out.
Exactly.
So yeah, just mention things. You never know. Again, don't break laws, people. But
Yeah, no, be yourself. Like lean into what makes you unique because people
yeah,
don't want to work with robots. We want to work with people. People are good. So be a
yeah,
person. It can be
yeah.
hard like to know what to and not to say in interviews. And I know like I I feel fortunate that even when I was getting like my foothold in tech, I was very passionate about getting more moms into tech. So I didn't sugarcoat it.
Okay,
I say things like, I'm sitting on the ground right now because the kids are in the living room and that's mom
okay.
life, but I'm going to do a heck of a job here, and like felt very comfortable saying those kinds of things. And I know that some people mentioned the same kinds of things, like that was really
Hmm.
memorable that, you know, you are a mom and your kids were there, but you were still able to be very professional. And
Yeah,
that was impressive to us. And so it's like, you can't always feel comfortable doing that, especially if you come, from other underrepresented groups. But it is something that I know when I get in the job, you're still going to see. When you're working with me on a team, you're still going to see this kind of thing. So I'm
yeah,
going to be upfront with you right now that this is what life for me is.
yeah, yeah. Ali in the chat saying like, yeah, people
What?
definitely don't remember. Definitely don't forget me if I say I used to work in a police impound. I would not forget
Exactly.
that, and I'm sure there's cool stories that she can probably or they can probably share or not share. I don't know,
I'm
but
sure.
I don't mean on the stream right now, but I just mean if you were in the interview. But yeah, and yeah, definitely what you said too about I know I'm repeating some stuff you're saying, but like definitely being yourself is super important because like I'll just speak about myself for a second here, but I goof around. I mean, I do good work, but I goof around. Like that's my nature. I'm serious when I need to be serious, but that's how I'm gonna act in the interview because that's what you're gonna get. And like
Yep.
if people are all of a sudden like, I don't know, this guy's a bit of a joker,
You want to
maybe
work
that's
with them.
already, it's a way for me to filter out things on my own,
Hmm. Right.
so
Because these are the people you're going to be working with. And if you don't have
yeah,
like a vibe, if there's no flow between you, like, do you want to go to work every day and feel that? I do not.
yeah,
So you're
yeah,
interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you. Don't
yeah,
forget it. I feel hard when you're
yeah,
desperate for a job, when you're like, I will literally take anything because I've been there too.
yeah,
But it's like, if you be yourself and you find a team where you're really going to
yeah,
fit well, I think it will work out. Also, on that
yeah,
note, just as somebody who does see the other side of the hiring process, know that even if you do really, really well and you think everything is great and you get rejected, a lot of times it might not have anything to do with you. It might just be that there were five other
yeah,
people who were slightly better fits for that particular role. So
yeah,
don't don't get too down on yourself. I know it's very hard. If it doesn't work out, just keep trying. And if you felt like it went well, stay in touch with those recruiters because
hmm,
recruitment is their job and they might not even be at the same company in a few months. So if
yeah.
you can make a good impact on a recruiter or a hiring manager, try and keep those relationships up if you can.
Yeah, no, for sure. And like you said too, we kind of this is kind of in the job mock fit interviews too, but like in general, it's a great thing. Like when you go to interview, they'll probably ask you some coding questions, some job fit stuff, but if you don't have questions for the company, I've heard from a lot of people, and including myself, I'd be like, I find it a bit bizarre you don't have any questions for me,
Mhm.
like literally anything. So like you know, if you are applying to jobs, definitely, read up about the company, maybe check out a few people that work there. Because if you get to an interview and you're like, I'm not really sure what Zapier does, but it sounds cool, you know, but even it's just asking the questions will help you also potentially filter out where you don't want to work, like
Hmm.
maybe you're asking about like, oh, what kind of processes do you have, like do you write tests, or do do people work late often, or is like overtime like a very rare occurrence when there's something critical, you know
Hmm.
there's
Exactly
there's
that.
so many things.
Andrew
Yeah.
Hedges of the Collab Lab, during our
Yeah.
career lab portion, does a really great session on what questions to ask your interviewers. And one of the
Okay.
kind of takeaways that I had from his session was think through your past, think through your previous jobs. What things did you like and what things did you not like? And how are you going to ask the company if that kind of thing is going to happen to you there? And
Yeah.
so, for example, one of the questions I came up with after hearing him talk about that was, like tell me about a time when your team didn't hit a deadline. What happened?
Okay.
Because in one of my previous jobs, we didn't hit a deadline and tons of people got fired. And I was like,
Okay. Yeah.
I want to know before I walk into it that that doesn't happen here. And it's like,
Yeah.
I didn't really think about asking questions like based on my past and how I want the future to be. But it's a really great approach to those questions because you got to know
Yeah.
before you get in there.
Yeah. And I mean, interviewing in general is tough from both ends. Like you have a
Yeah.
finite amount of time with somebody you're being interviewed by, or somebody that you're interviewing. you know it's not to say it's a gamble, but it is to some degree, because like you only have, people hopefully put their best foot forward and show who they really are, and then you kind of just take a leap of faith to some degree, because like,
Mhm.
you know even
You just,
even if you were to have a long day of like 8 hours of interviews or something, like even at eight
mhm.
hours that's still not enough to really know somebody or anything. So
No.
it's
Yeah.
it's tough.
Yeah. My
So
advice to people, because I'm sure there's a lot of people listening that are out there interviewing, but it's somebody who does a lot of interviews now. When you're giving your answers in an interview, try to give very concrete and specific examples that answer the question.
yeah.
Even if they don't ask, like, give me an example of a time. If they're like, how would you handle a situation where there was a conflict in a team? Instead of kind of, in
Yeah.
theory, I would, you know, go to them and talk to them. Give an example of like, that's a really great question. There was this one
Yeah.
time when XYZ happened, because that's what stands out and is memorable and shows that you
Hmm.
actually have experience and you follow through on the things you say. In addition to that, when you answer those questions, make sure at the end they always go up. So, what I learned from that experience was this: it shows that you
Yeah.
learned and you made a difference. Or if I were to experience that again, I might try this instead. And it just shows
Hmm.
growth and you moving forward. So instead of ending it on a like, here's how we dealt with that conflict, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, but tell me, what did you learn from it? What would you do next time? Kind of push that into the future. I would write. So
Yeah.
those are my tips.
For sure. And kind of, I'm glad you brought up that example, because that's a really good question to ask. And also, it's if you're somebody who's it's your first job, you don't have that scenario. But this is again was like this is why I say lean into previous experience. Like, how did you deal with conflict at wherever else you were working? It's kind of still the same thing. Yes, it's not code, but
Mm-hmm.
like, how you approached it, how you dealt with it. So again, just lean into that past or current career that you're transitioning from if you can. That'll definitely help too.
Exactly that.
Um,
Exactly that.
yeah.
Because it's like, in the end, you're just a human working on a team of humans to get something done. And
Yeah.
so, like, even if you work as a server, for example, which many, many of us have,
Hmm.
there are a lot of times where it's very high pressure and there's a lot of moving pieces and people might not be on the same page. But in the end, we pick up slack to make sure that the users, the end users, are
Yeah.
the people that we're serving, are getting a good experience. And you can talk about times there were miscommunications and balls were dropped and how like solved for that, because essentially you're
Yeah.
doing the same thing in a team of developers. You're working together to get things done within a certain time frame and make sure that
Yeah.
an end user is happy. So lean on that experience for sure. It's valuable.
No, definitely, definitely. I'm just gonna drop. I already dropped the Collab Lab codes site. I'm just gonna drop the Twitter again. We're
Yes.
getting close to time. I don't know if there's a way we could kind of wrap this all up. I feel like we've had just great discussions and
Gone
just kind
all
of
over.
tangents and coming back, which is super awesome. I guess, yeah. So again, like you said, if folks are interested in the Collab Lab, apply regardless. I dropped the site, so check out the dash collab dash dot codes. If you're interested in being a
Mouthful.
mentor there too, just visit slash mentor on that page. I can drop that again. Aside from that, so mainly there's the Slack channel where a lot of people communicate, and then we didn't actually talk about it, but like I imagine you have the teams have Zoom sessions every now and then just
Yeah. Yep.
to go over. It's not all asynchronous.
No, there's in fact quite a bit of it in the beginning of every week is synchronous because we emphasize
Okay.
pair programming because we think it's a really good way to learn. So yeah,
Okay.
we'll use Zoom or whatever tool, Google Meet if a team wants to do those. And then at the end
Okay.
of the week, also we will do our weekly syncs on Zoom live as well. But
Okay.
yeah, it's great. We've got a like my TLDR of the whole thing is that it can be so very hard to get your first job as an
Yeah.
engineer. And trying to do that, trying to go through the interview process without having ever worked on a team of developers to do something is even harder because you don't have a lot of experience to lean on. And you can't prove it. And everybody wants
Yeah.
you to prove it right now. And so I think a really good stepping stone, if you've taught yourself how to code or you've learned in a boot camp, is then to come to a place like CollabLab, where you can
Yeah.
work on a team of developers to build something together and get those experiences. We are, like I said earlier, an 8-week program where you do get to do just that, collaborate on a project with a group of developers and learn the in and outs of what it's like to work on a team. And then you can go talk about those so that you
Yeah.
can land that job. Trying to do it without a community is not fun or easy.
Yeah.
We run teams every cohort. We just closed applications for this upcoming cohort. So check the website in a few months. We'll be opening again. And we're always
Okay.
looking for mentors and volunteers with, mentoring teams or doing career coaching or helping us build automation so that we can, scale the program better.
Yeah.
So hit us up on Twitter or in our emails or through our website. However you want to get in touch, we would love to hear from anyone.
Awesome. Awesome. That's I think that's a great place to stop things here. I just want to say, Stacie, it was amazing. I had amazing convos with you today. I'm really excited about the Collab Lab, and for folks who are interested, I highly encourage you to check it out and apply. Aside from that, just on a non the Collab Lab related note, this is going to be the last dev Twitch stream for a while. I'm switching roles. I just want to say thanks to everybody at Forum and Dev2. It's been an amazing 2.5 years. I'm sure the stream will kick back up again at some point, but for the time being, because it's me who runs it, I don't think it's gonna come back up in the next few weeks. And I also wanted to give a big shout out to Christina Gordon, who used to be my co-host on here. We had a lot of good times on here. She's amazing. She's over at a place called, I think it's the Red Scarf now. She's doing dev advocacy over there. So shout out to Christina. Thanks to everybody who's checked out the streams over the past almost 2 years. Yeah, so thanks everybody. Take care.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks for running.